Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loko Tranaya Karunam Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loko Tranaya Karunya Gana Ganatam Prapta Sakalyana Gunana Vasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Mahaprabhu Kirtana Nrita Gita Vaditra Madhyam Manasura Sena Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Bhajo Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Diramarjanado Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shri Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satvana Truptam Hari Bhakta Shanga Chaturvidha Shri Bhagavad Prasada Satvana Truptam Kridvaiva Trupte Bhajata Shadeva Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Shiradikama Dabayurapara Madhurya Leela Gunarupanam Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam Ne kunjayono ratikeli siddhai jayali veri jukti apekshaniya ne kunjayono ratikeli siddhai tatrati daksha ati balavasya Vande Guru Shri Charanara Vrindam. Satchadharitena Shamasta Shashri Ruta Tathava Vyataiva Sadhavi. Kintu Pravarja Priyaiva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Tasya Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasado. Oh, Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi. Oh, Yasya Prasadam Dayam Stovam Tasa Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Vande Gurashi Charanara Vrindam. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Pachatadesha Darine Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Pachatadesha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna. Yaraya Nama Krishna Jadavaya Nama Hare Jadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopina Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhattara Guna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasara Guna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare Nittai Gaura Haribo 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 Nittai Gaura Haribo 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 Nittai Gaura Premanande Jai Vishnupada Paramahansa Prabhajakacharya Sutta Srishishimad His Divine Grace of Bhajana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Viviti Samstapakachar Vaishnava Siramani Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ji Maharaj Ki Jai Shri Gauriya Guru Varga Patita Udhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Gunasad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ji Ki Jai Ananta Kur Vaishnava Vrindi Ki Jai Prem se Koho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrindi Ki Jai Jai Param Dayal Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai Jai Premanama Sankirtane Ka Janaka Prema Purushottama Shri Sachinandan Shri Guranga Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Gaur Hari Mahavana Avatar Ki Jai Golokera Pramadhana Hari Nam Sankirtan Jaga Ki Jai Juga Dharma Hare Krishna Mahamantra Ki Jai Brihad Nidanga Transcendental Book Distribution Seva Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopakupna Radha Kunsam Kungiriraj Gobodhan Ki Jai Shri Brajabhum Vrindavan Maturadam Ki Jai The Lordship Shri Shri Radha Nila Madhava Ki Jai Shri Shri Maya Purnavati Ekachakradam Ki Jai Param Karun Shri Shri Gaur Nitai Ki Jai Shri Purushottama Kitra Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Shri Shri Jagannath Swami Baladev Prabhu Smaspadra Devi Sudarshan Chakra Bhagavan Ki Jai Sitaram Lakshman Bhakta Hanuman Ji Ki Jai Bhakti Sarva Vigna Vinashana Karan Shingare Bhagavan Ki Jai Jaganga Mai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Tulasi Maharani Vrinde Devi Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Shri Mathura Dharani Ki Jai Samaveda Bhakta Vrinde Ki Jai Nitai Gaurari Pramanande All glory to the assembled bodies All glory to the assembled bodies All glories to the assembled bodies All glories Glory to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga Haribo Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Namaste Narasimhaya
Praladadaine
Praladadaine
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha
Hiranyakashipurvakshaha
Shilatankanakalaye
Shilatankanakalaye
parato narsimha.
Ito nisinga parata nisinga.
Yato yato yami tato narsimha.
Jato jato yami tato nisinga.
Bahir narsimha hridaye narsimha.
Baye nisinga hridaye nisinga.
Narasimha madim sharanam prapade.
Narasimha madim sharanam prapade.
Tava kara kamala varenakam adbhuta shringam dalita hiranyakashipu tanubinga keshavadita narhari rupa jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare.
Abakara kamala varenakam adbhuta shringam dalita hiranyakashipu tanubingam keshavadita narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare.
Keshavadeta narahari rupa jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare jai jagadisha hare.
Jaya Keshavadita Narari Rupa Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare.
Jaya Narsimha Dev Jaya Narsimha Dev Jaya Narsimha Dev Jaya Narsimha Dev
Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare Jaya Nisingare.
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj
Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj.
श्री नरसिंहदेव भगवान की भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की
Jai. Shri Vrindaye Tulasi Debai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Debai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindaye Tulasi Devai Priyaye Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavataye Namo Namaha. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai.
कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
नमो नमः। तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो हे अभिलाषी।
जे तो मारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूरा न हो।
जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूर्ण हो।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन बासी।
तुम्हें कृपा करे कर तारे वृंदावन वासी।
मोरा ए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास।
मोरा बेला विलास कुंज दियावा।
नयने हरि वो सदा जुगल रूपरासी।
अमिनायने रे सदा जुगल परासी।
ए निवेदन धारो साखीर अनुगाता कोरो।
एने वेदानाधार सकीरायनो गतकार।
सेवा अधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी।
सेवायारे कार दिए करनी जदासी।
बिना कृष्ण दासे कोई जीना मोरा होए।
न कृष्ण दास को ये मोरा।
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा जीना भासी।
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सरयन बासी।
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा जीना भासी।
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदा ये नवासी।
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे।
जानि कानि सा पापानि ब्रह्म हत्यादि कनिसा। तानि तानि प्रणाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे।
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Tani kani sa papani brahmachari kani sa tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pade pade.
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्मा हत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे
Tani kani sa papani brahmachari kani sa tani tani pranasanti pradakshina pade pade.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani.
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol
Hari Bol Nitya Gaura Hari Bol.
श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय.
Jai. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Devai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Shatavataye Namo Namaha. Shrimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to attend the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of his wishes fulfilled, bestow your mercy upon him in making resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I will always behold beautiful pastimes of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry the emphasis of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me your own maidservant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna's praise, may I always see me love Shri Radha and Govind. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Kristakam Ki Jai. Chaito Darpanam Ajana Prabhamada Namivapanam Yadrusi Prabha Kripa Bhagavanamati Durghaivam Idrisham Glory to Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes the fire of conditional life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the primary addiction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays of the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested your transcendental energies. There is no even hard and fast rule for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by your holy name. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once we chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself the Lord and strolling straight, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense, false prestige, and should be ready to offer our respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I am falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, or will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Or will my voice choke up? Or will the hairs of my body stand and the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I am considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he shall remain so, even if he handles me rightfully by his embrace or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, but he's always my worshipful Lord, unconditional. Shri Shri Stakam Ki Jai. Om Mahavarana Krishna Prema Pradaya Krishna. There are 10 offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Last God is to dedicate life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods, the Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, to be equal to independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. This with the orders to master. 4.
To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature pursuant to the Vedic version.
5.
To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to the imagination.
6.
To give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord.
7.
To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord.
8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic
activities
which often Vedas as spiritual activity. Karma Kanda. 9. To instruct the fullest person by the glories of holy name. And 10. Do not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to begin material attachments, even of understanding so many instructions in this matter. It was so inoffensive in chanting or chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against the offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired
Success, Krishna, Prema. Now, let's offer our most humble obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desire trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha kripasindubhye cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tanamani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Rasatani Srimad Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Janmad Yasya Yato Nivayad Itaratas Chartesu Avigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hirdaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Atsurayaha Tejo Varimadam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha Tamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes, of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen on fire or land seen on water, only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reaction to the three modes of nature, appear factual although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations in the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. Dharma projita kaitravota paramo nirmatsanam satam vedyam vastavam atra vastu shivadam tapatrayon mulam Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite Kim Vaparir Ishvaraha Sadyo Hridi Avarudyate Tra Krite Behi Sususabhistakshana. Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart. Nigama kalpataror galitam phulam sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasam malayam muhur aho raska bhuvibhavakaha. O expert and thoughtful man, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit of the desired two Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Sukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful. Although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. Shinvatam Swakata Krishna
Vantam Swakata Krishna
Punya Shravana Kirtana
Shravana Kirtan
Hiryantaksto Bhadrani
Vidyantastu
Vidunati Suhitsatam.
Vidunati Surisata.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures,
To hear about Krishna from the
or to
Vedic
hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from it directly
is
from the
itself
Bhagavad
righteous activity.
Gita, self-righteous
And for one who hears about Krishna,
and for one who hears
Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna dwelling within everyone,
acts as a best wishing friend
acts as the best
and
person,
purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing
and
of him.
everybody was constantly engaged in hearing.
Nasta presu bhadresu
Nasta Presha
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Bhagavati
Bhagavati Utamasloke
Bhagavati
Bhaktir Bhavati Naistaki. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, devotion naturally develops dormant trend.
As he hears more about Krishna from the
As
Bhagavatam
he hears more about Krishna
and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service.
Tadarajastamo bhava
Rajastamo Bhava
kamalobhadayaschaye chete taranavidam stitvam sattve prasidati. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lust and avarice are diminished. Evam prasana manasu bhagavat bhakti yogataha bhagavat tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Vidyate hridaya grantis chidyante sarvasamsaya siyante chasya karmani drista evat manisware. Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the heart not of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsayam samagram, understanding of the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna. Shri Shri Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as a cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it. So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy names, and chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments. The spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind. Sometimes his hair stands on end. He feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food. Analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava, and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal love.
I offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all
This
authorities.
is acknowledged in all the revealed scriptures and followed by all of them.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hari Krishna.
Therefore, I offer my humble obeisance to the Lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of
By the
Krishna.
mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of
Without-
Krishna.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual
At least
master.
3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus to my spiritual master.
Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai, Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadiraja Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Sakchirananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarvakaranaka
Chintamani Prakadasadma Sukalpa Vriksha
Damani Prakara Sadma Sukalpa
Laksha Vritesa Surabhira Bipaliyantam
Latya Vitesi Surabhira Vipalayantam
Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam
Lakshmi Sahasha Satasambhrama Sri
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham
Venam Kwanantam Aravinda Dalayataksham
Venam Kwanantam Aravinda Dalayata
Laksha Varhavatam Samasitam Buddhasundarangam
Aram Vata Samasitam Buddha Sundaram
Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobam
Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalya Vamsi
Alola Chandra Kala Sarvana Madhyavam
Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam
Nangadam Pranayakeli Kalabila
Shyamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam
Samam Tribangala Ritam Niyata
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti
Angani Yasa Sakalendriya Vritti
Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti
Pasyanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jagan
Ananda Chinmaya Sadujvala Vigrahasya
Ananda Chinmaya Saduchvala Vigraha
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam
Advaitam Achyutam
Adyam Purana
Anantam Anantarum
Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha
Adyam Purana Purusham Navajauvan
Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto
Deshu Durlabham Adurlabham
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Pantastu Koti Satavatsara Sampragamyo
Pantastu Koti Sadavatsara Prang
Vayo Ratapi Manaso Muni Pungamanam
Vayuratapi Manaso Muni Pungam
Sopyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve
Vyasya Pradasimya Vichintya
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Ekopya Sora Chayitam Jagadanda Kotim
Ekapya Sura Chayitam
Shakti
Jagadanta
Yas Chaktirasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta
Chati Rasta Jagadanta Chayayara
Andantarasta Paramanu Chayantarastam
Danta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva
Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manjastatayi
Samprapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhushaha
Prapya Rupa Mahima Sanayana Bhusha
Suktaryameva Nigama Pratitaistuvanti
Suktiryameva Nigama Pratitestuvam
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis
Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita
Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabi
Bhavya Eva Nijarupa Tayaka
Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto
Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksa Deva Hidesu Santaksa Deva Hidesu Vilokayanti
Tasadeva Videshu Vilokayam
Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam
Syama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswaram
Govinda Madi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Brahmadimurti Sukalani Amenatistan
Ramadimoti Shukalani Yamena Tisha
Nana Avatara Makarod Bhuvane Sukintu
Nana Vatara Makarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu
Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo
Krishna Swayam Sambhavat Paramam
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Damari Purusham Tamaham
Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti
Yasa Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Kuti
Koti Swaseshu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam
Kotyas Vasheshas Vasudari Vibhuti Bindu
Tad Brahma Nisklamanantam Ashesha Bhutam
Brahmanis Kalamanantam Ashesha
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Damari Purusham Tamaham
Maya Hiyasya Jagananda Satani Sute
Maya Yasa Jagananda Satani Sutta
Jai Gunyatad Vishaya Veda Vitayamanam
Vegunata Vishaya Veda Vitayama
Sattvam Valambi Parasattvam Visuddha Sattvam
Sarvam Valambi Param Sattvam Visuddha Sattvam
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manasu
Ananda
Ya Praninam Pratifalam
Satmataya
Ya Praninam Pratifalam Smaratam Upetya
Ya Praninam Pratispalam Smaratam
Vilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram
Vilayitena Bhuvanini Jajat
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Golokanamni Golokanamni Nijadamni Tale Chatasya
Golo Kanami Nijadamni Tale Chatrisa
Devi Mahesu Haridama Sute Sutesu
Devi
Tete
Mahesha
Prabhava
Haridama
Nichaya
Suteshu
Tete Prabhava Nichaya Vitaschayena
Dete Prabhava Nichaya Vidaichaya
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Shristi Stati Pralaya Sadhava Saktireka
Stiti Pralaya Sadhana Shakti
Chaeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga
Jayena Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti
Ichanurupam Apiyasya Chachestatesa
Ichanupam Apayasya Chakati
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Shiram Yata Dadi Vikara Visesa Yoga
Tiram Yata Dadi Vikara Vishesha
Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Hetoho
Sanjayata Nitata Pitakasti Heti
Yasambhutam Apitata Samapaiti Karyat
Yasamputam Apitata Samupeti
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Deeparchit Eva Hitasantanam Abhyupetya
Dipachiheva Inisa Santara Mamupeti
Deepayate Vivita Hetu Samanudharma
Dipayate Vivita Hetu Samana Dharma
Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati
Yata Drigeva Icha Vishnu Taya
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham
Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga
Yakana Nama Jaleva Jati Sampriyoga
Nidram Ananta Jagananda Saroma Kupaha
Ram Ananta Jagananda Saroma Kupa
Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Param Swamurtim
Adhara Shakti Malavamya Param
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham
Yasyaika Nisvasita Kalamatavalamya
Yasheka Nisasita Kalamata Valambya
Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagananda Nataha
Ivanti Loma Vilaja Jagananda Nata
Vishnu Mahansa Yasya Kalavisesa
Vishnu Mahansa Yasha Kala Vishesha
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham
Basman Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Tejaha
Vasvan Yatasma Sakaleshu Nijeta Teja
Sriyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvadatra
Siyam Kiyat Prakatayati Rapita Datra
Brahma Yahesa Jagananda Vidana Karta
Brahmaya Esha Jagananda Vidana
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindamadi Purusham
Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha
Pala Palava Yugamni Vidaya
Dvande Pranama Samaya Dvande Pranama Samayesa Ganadi Rajaha
Ve Pranama Samaye Saganadi Raja
Vignan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatrayasya
Vigna Vihantu Malamasya Jagat
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Agnir Mahiga Ganamambu Marudisascha
Agnir Mahe Gagana Ambu Marudisa
Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani
Kala Tatarma Manasita Jagat
Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha
Yasmat Bhavanti Vibhavanti Vishanti
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham
Yaschakstrade Esa Savita Sakala Grahanam
Yaksha Churesha Sabita Sakala Graha
Raja Samasta Suramurti Rasesa Tejaha
Raja Samasa Suramu
Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govindam Adi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Sutayastapamsi Pramadikita Patagaba Dayascha Jivaha Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahoswakarma Bandhana Rupa Falabhajana Bandhana Rupa Falabhajana Matanoti Karmani Nirdhati Kinchit Karmani Nirdhati Kintu Chapakti Bhajan Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranayadi Bitti Vatsalya Moha Guru Gora Vasevya Bhavahai Sanchitya Tasya Sadrasim Tanamapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purusha Kalpataravo Druma Bhumish Chintamani Gani Mayi Toyam Amritam Kata Ganam Natyam Gamanam Apivamsi Priyasaki Chidadandam Jyoti Param Apitad Asvadyam Apicha Sayatra Shiradi Bihi Shavati Surabi Vyascha Sumahan Nime Sardakyuva Vrajati Nahiyatra Pisamaya Bhaje Sweta Dvipam Tamaham Iha Golakam Itiyam Vidantaste Santakshiti Viralachara Katipaye Shri Upanishadi Ki Jai Om Purnam Adab Purnam Idam Purnat Purnam Udachate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate
Om Purnam Ada Purnam Idam Purnam Purnam Udishate Purnasya Purnam Adaya Purnam Eva Vasishyate
Ishvaisham Idam Sarvam Jatkinja Jagatyam Jagat Tena Taktena Bunjitaha Magritaha Kashasviddanam
Ishamidam Sarvam Yakinchit Jagat Jagat Tena Tiktena Punjita Maguta Kasya Svidhan
Kurvan Eva Karmani Jiva Chekchatam Samaha Evam Twayina Nyatetusti Nakarma Lipyate Nare
Kurvam Evaya Karmani Sija Chantam Sama Evam Trayi Manyatosi Sakarma
Asurya Namate Loka Andena Tamasavritaha Tamste Pritya Bhikichanti Yeke Chat Mahano Janaha
Asurya Nama Te Loka Adena Tamasavita Tamsita Prityavi Kachati Jeka Chantu Havana
Anajadika Manaso Javio Nena Devam Apavam Pavam Rasata Davatunyana Teti Sista Tasmin Apumata Viswadadati
Anisha Deka Manaso Vajibo Matana Deva Anupuvat Astat Dadvavatunam
Tad ejati tan ejati tad dure tad vantike tad antarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasya sya bayataha
Tadejati Tam Majati Dadure Tava Antike Tarantarasya Savasya Taru Savasya
tad yastu sarvani bhutani atmani vanupasyati sarvabhutesu chatmanam tatuna vichigupsate
Yastu Salvani Bhutani Admane Evanupasati Sarvabhuteshu Chatmanam Tatu Na Vijo
yasmin sarvani bhutani atmeva bhudvijanataha tatrako mahakaha soka ekadvam anupasyataha
Yadme Salvani Bhutani Amanubhabu Vijakanata Tatrako Mukshaka Suka Ikavam Anupasata
Saprayaka Chukamakaya Nam Aslaviram Apapavidam Kavir Manisi Paribu Swayambhu Yatatat Yutovitan Vidadadas Chasvatipyaha Samabhyaha
Sapayaragat Chukam Akyamam Avritam Asanotam Sudam Apapavidam
Kavir Manisi Paribu Swayambhu Yatatat Yutovitan Vidadadas Chasvatipyaha Samabhyaha Andham Tamaha Pravisanti Ye Vidyam Upasyate Tato Bhuyayvate Tamo Yayu Vidyayam Rataha
Kavimanase Pravibu Swadambhu Swata Yatoritam Vyadachat Chavaditotaya Samabhya
Anyadevur Vidyaya Anyadahura Vidyaya Iti Sushruma Dhiranam Yenastad Vichichaksire
Andam tama pravishanti ye vidyam upasate tato bhuya ivata tamo ya vidyadam yarata.
Vidyam cha yasyastadvido bayam saha avidyaya militum tirtva vidyayam ritamasnute.
Vidyam cha yasta vidaya vatsaha avidyam amritam tirta vidyam asnate.
Anyad tamaha andham tamaha pravishanti ye sambhutim upasyate tatlo bhuyayavate tamo yayu vidyayam rataha.
Andam tama pravishanti ye sambutim upasate tato bhuya ivam tamo ya usambuyam rata.
Anyad evahur sambhavat anyad ahur sambhavat iti susrumadiranam yenastad vichachaksire.
Anyariva bhusam bhavat anyaravu sambhavat iti asrumadirayam ye datta vichas.
Sambhutim cha vinasam cha yastadvila bayam saha vinasena militum tirtva sambhutam tamasnute.
Samutam cha vishayasam cha yatarvido dayam saha vinasena mritum tirva sambuchamritam.
Hiranmayana patrena satyasya bhitam bhukam sat tatvam pusama pavrinu satyadharmaya dristaye.
Hiranmayena pratena satyapi hitamukam tatvam usaya avinu satyam dharmaye.
Pusane karseyamasriya prajapatya vyuharasmin samahateja yatte rupankaya laptamam tate pasyami yo savaso purushaha sohamasmi.
Pusane kasyama surya prajapatya uyasvisim amuyatejo yate rupam kalpaya tamam tate sapishanti yu asvaso purushari.
Vayuranilam amritam atedam basmantam sarinam om kratos smara kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara.
Vayuranilam amritam atedam bashmatam ashram om kritos smaram kritam smara kratos smara kritam smara.
Agnena supatara yasman viswani deva vayunani vidvan yo dasmas juhurana meno buyastam te nama uktim vedama om tat sad.
Agneya supata pradirasmin visanideva vayunani vidam Judyo asma jahudanam eno buyistam te nama utim vidam.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Verse number 35. Soham samanayamanastapo prajapatinam abhivanditapati. Astaya yogam nipunam samahitas.
Tasayogam nipunam samahita.
Tam nadiyagacham yata atmasambhavaha.
Nadyagachanyata atmasambhava.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities, and am expert in mystic powers and self-realization, and although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities, who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand Him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Brahma, the greatest of all living creatures within the universe, is admitting his failure to know the Supreme Lord despite his vast learning in the Vedic wisdom, despite his austerity, penance, mystic powers, and self-realization, and despite being worshipped by the great Prajapatis, the forefathers of the living entities. So these qualifications are not sufficient to know the Supreme Lord. Brahmaji could understand the Lord to a little extent only when he was trying to serve him by the eagerness of his heart, hridutkantyavata, which is the devotional service mood. Therefore, the Lord can be known only by the sincere mood of eagerness for service, and not by any amount of material qualification as scientist or speculative philosopher, or by attainment of mystic powers. This fact is clearly corroborated in the Bhagavad Gita 18.54 and 55. Brahmabhuta prasanatma nasochati nakangsati samaksarve subhutesu madbhaktin labate param Bhakta mam abhijananti yavanyasjasmi tatpata tato mam tatpato gyatva vishate tad anantaram. Only self-realization by attainment of the above high qualifications of Vedic wisdom, austerity, etc., can help one on the path of devotional service. But failing in devotional service, one remains still imperfect, because even in that position of self-realization, one cannot factually know the Supreme Lord. By self-realization, one is qualified to become a devotee, and the devotee by service mood, bhaktya, only can gradually know the personality of Godhead. One should not, however, misunderstand the import of vishate, enters into, as referring to merging into the existence of the Supreme. Even in material existence, one is merged in the one is merged in the existence of the Lord. No materialist can disentangle himself from matter, for the self is merged in the external energy of the Lord. As no layman can separate butter from milk, no one can extricate the merged self from matter by acquiring some material qualification. This visate, by devotion, bhaktya, means to be able to participate in the association of the Lord in person. So vishate means in, or merging in. So the Mayavadis would say that's proof that it's oneness, absolute oneness, but that's not what it means. It's merging into the devotion or relationship of love with the Lord. Means to be able to participate in the association of the Lord in person. Bhakti, or devotional service to the Lord, means to become free from material entanglement and then to enter into the kingdom of God, becoming one like Him. Losing one's individuality is not the aim of Bhakti Yoga or of the devotees of the Lord. There are 5 types of liberation, one of which is called Sayuja Mukti, or being merged into the existence or body of the Lord. In other forms of liberation, the other forms of liberation maintain the individuality of the particular particle soul and involve being always engaged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The word vishate, used in the verses of the Bhagavad Gita, is thus meant for the devotees who are not at all anxious for any kind of liberation. The devotees are satisfied simply in being engaged in the service of the Lord, regardless of the situation. Lord Brahma is the first living being who directly learned the Vedic wisdom from the Lord. Tene Brahma Hirdaya Adhikavaye. Therefore, who can be a more learned Vedantist than Lord Brahma? He admits that in spite of his perfect knowledge in the Vedas, he was unable to know the glories of the Lord. Since no one can be more than Lord Brahma, how can a so-called Vedantist be perfectly cognizant of the absolute truth? The so-called Vedantist, therefore, cannot enter into the existence of the Lord without being trained in the matter of Bhakti Vedanta, or Vedanta, meaning self-realization, plus Bhakti. Vedanta means self-realization, and Bhakti means realization of the personality of Godhead to some extent. No one can know the personality of Godhead in full, but at least to a certain extent one can know the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, by self-surrender and a devotional attitude, and by nothing else. In the Brahma Samhita also, it is also said, Vede Sadurlabham, or simply, by study of Vedanta, one can hardly find out the existence of the personality of Godhead. But the Lord is Adurlabham Atma Bhakto, very easily available to his devotee. Srila Vyasadeva therefore was not satisfied simply with compiling the Vedanta Sutras, but over and above this, by the advice of his spiritual master Narada, he compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam in order to understand the real import of Vedanta. Srimad Bhagavatam, therefore, is this absolute medium by which to understand the absolute truth. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Although I am known as the great Brahma, perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom, and although I have undergone all austerities and am expert in mystic powers and self-realization, And although I am recognized as such by the great forefathers of the living entities who offer me respectful obeisances, still I cannot understand the Lord, the very source of my birth. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is definitely a very profound statement by Lord Brahma, who's such a powerful person. He's the most powerful person in the universe. But yet, he admits that he still cannot understand Krishna. So, what about us? If he can't understand, how are we going to understand? But yet, it is possible, and this is explained, well, first of all, it's explained in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 26. Let's see what that says. Chapter 7, verse 26. Vedaham samititani vartamanani charjana bhavishyani chabhutani mam tu vedana kaschana. So this is an important verse that says, O Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I know all living being entities, but me, nobody, or no one knows. Well, I would say that's a fact. There are very few people that actually know and understand Krishna. Srila Prabhupada knew and understood Krishna. So what is the symptom of someone who knows and understands Krishna? They're engaged 24 hours a day in devotional service. That's the symptom. They have no other interest in life. They're not interested in making money. They're not interested in having sex. They're not interested in eating this thing or that thing. They're not interested in even having liberation. Nadanam najanam nasundaryam kavitam va jagadishikamaye mama janmani janmani srere bhavatad bhaktirahaitu tvai. So, I don't want any amount of wealth. I don't want to enjoy beautiful women. I don't want any number of followers or disciples. And all I want is your causeless devotional service of Krishna, birth after birth, which means I don't want liberation either. So that's the symptom of a real, pure devotee. And this is what Srila Prabhupada is teaching. He didn't change anything. This is the original teaching of Krishna, where he says, Sarvadharman prityaja mamekam saranam vraja. Just give up everything else and just surrender unto me, Krishna says. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshisyami masucha. If you do this, then I will free you from all sinful reactions. Therefore, you have nothing to fear, nothing to hesitate for, and nothing to doubt. So that is the ultimate statement near the end of the Bhagavad Gita. So, therefore, manmana bhava man bhakto madhyachi man namaskuru nam ivaisasi satyam te pratijane priyosane. O Arjuna, manmana bhava, always think of me. Mad bhakto, become my devotee. Madhyachi, worship me. Mam namaskuru, offer all your homage and respect and love for me. Mam evaisasi satyam te, I promise you, if you do this, satyam te pratijane priyosame, you'll become very dear to me. So, here, these two verses at the end of Bhagavad Gita explain the incredible benefit of completely surrendering to Krishna. And this is what Prabhupada taught us in the beginning of Krishna consciousness. He convinced young people who were engaged in sense gratification, whose minds were like rabbits running here and there, and they couldn't make up their mind who they are, what they are, and to slow themselves down a little bit, they were smoking marijuana or taking LSD, trying to find something through those means, which led to a dead end. So he convinced people like that to completely surrender. And that's how the movement spread dramatically in those early years, from 1968 to 1977, because people actually surrendered. They gave up everything else they were doing. I had to give up. I had a full scholarship to get my master's and PhD. I gave it up. And I had so many other great opportunities. I gave everything up. I gave up every penny I had in my pocket. And I just started waking up early in the morning, and from going from 3:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, just doing service. There was not even 1 second to do anything else. We didn't even have time to take a nap in the afternoon. The schedule was so rigid. So, but that was a good life, and that was very necessary. And by doing that, convincing young men and women to do that, Prabhupada spread this movement all over the world in 10, 11 years. So, and then he left, and he said, "Okay, now you guys take over. I've given you everything in my books. Now you expand. If you can't expand, at least maintain what there is." Yeah, in order to expand, you have to be exceptional. To maintain, also, you have to be exceptional. So it's kind of succeeding in that way, because it's continuing. Now, over 50 years, devotees are continuing to maintain and expand. Expanding is not an easy thing, because you have to have determination to do it, and there's so many obstacles in Kali Yuga to expansion. So there are many envious people, and there are many rules and regulations. It's a huge effort, and it's actually very stressful. But it's ecstasy also at the same time, to expand Krishna consciousness. So anyway, Krishna says, Prabhupada says in his purport to 726, he says, here the question of personality and impersonality is clearly stated. If Krishna, the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, were Maya material, as the impersonalists consider him to be, then like the living entity, he would change his body and forget everything about his past life. That's a very important statement, because in the 4th chapter, Arjuna actually challenges Krishna, and he says, but in a respectful way, he says, aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvata, kata etad vijaniyam, twamado proktavamiti. He says, Arjuna said, the sun god Vivasvata is senior by birth to you. How am I to understand that in the beginning you instructed this science to him? Well, when he says in the beginning, he's talking about hundreds and millions of years before. And Krishna says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Bahuni me vyatitani janmani tavasarjuna tanyaham veda sarvani natvam veda parantapa. He says, the personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed. I can remember all of them, but you cannot, O subduer of the enemy. So this is the difference between Krishna and us. We change our body, and we completely forget who and what we were in the previous life. In fact, even in this life, you can forget who you are. If you smoke enough marijuana and take drugs, you forget who you are. Or if your brain deteriorates by too much smoking and drinking and sex, you can look at your own mother or your wife and say, well, who are you? That happens. People get Alzheimer's. They don't recognize anybody, even people that are their closest relatives. So, Krishna, however, because his body is not different than him, he's transcendental. He doesn't have a material body. But the Mayavadis claim that Krishna does have a material body. This is why they are considered to be the worst blasphemers of the Lord, worse than the atheists. They're atheists on steroids, and they reject everything. They reject Krishna, they reject the gopis, they reject Vaikuntha, they reject Goloka Vrindavan, they reject the shrubby cows, they reject Nanda Maharaj and Yasodamai. They reject everybody. They reject Radharani. They reject Krishna. And they say that Krishna is the sum total of ignorance. tamasam buddhi. And in order to attain Brahman, you have to reject Krishna, they say. That's why they're the worst of the worst. So Prabhupada says here, anyone with a material body cannot remember his past life, nor can he foretell his future life, nor can he predict the outcome of his present life. Therefore, he cannot know what is happening in the past, present, and future. Unless one is liberated from material contamination, he cannot know past, present, and future. Unlike the ordinary human being, Lord Krishna clearly says that he completely knows what happened in the past, what is happening in the present, and what will happen in the future. In the 4th chapter, we have seen that Lord Krishna remembers instructing Vivaswan, the sun god, millions of years ago. Krishna knows every living entity because he is situated in every living being's heart as the Supersoul. But despite his presence in every living entity as the Supersoul and his presence as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the less intelligent, even if able to realize the impersonal Brahman, cannot realize Sri Krishna as the Supreme Person. Certainly, the transcendental body of Sri Krishna is not perishable. He is just like the sun, and Maya is like a cloud. In the material world, we cannot see that there is the sun, in the material world, we can see that there is the sun, and that there are clouds and different stars and planets. The clouds may cover all these in the sky temporarily, but this covering is only apparent to our limited vision. The sun, moon, and stars are not actually covered. Similarly, Maya cannot cover the Supreme Lord. By his internal potency, he is not manifest to the less intelligent class of men. As it is stated in the 3rd verse of this chapter, out of millions and millions of men, some try to become perfect in this human form of life, and out of thousands and thousands of such perfected men, hardly one can understand what Lord Krishna is. Even if one is perfected by realization of impersonal Brahman or localized Paramatma, he cannot possibly understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, without being in Krishna consciousness. So that's why Prabhupada, and following Lord Chaitanya, who made things really easy, because this Kali Yuga that we're living in now, this age of hypocrisy and quarrel, make everything complicated and hard, especially spiritual life, because there's so many demons out there engaging in sense gratification all the time and glorifying it with big magazines and movies and books. They just glorify sense gratification and with so much that people are bewildered by it, and they just go with the flow and waste their life, and then they'll take birth as animals or insects in the next life, and have to start all over in the process of conscious evolution to come back to the human form of life again. So we're being misled by false information. The scientists, the philosophers, the teachers, the politicians, the doctors, the lawyers, they're all misleading us, trying to convince us that the purpose of life is make money and spend it to buy as many gadgets as you can, cars and gadgets and houses and boats. You look at these big dumbbells, the NBA basketball players and the football players and the baseball players. They make millions of dollars, and they buy big houses, and they buy big toilets because they pass big stool, and they eat all kinds of rubbish stuff, and they engage in a lot of sex, and their only qualification is they have some money and they can spend it lavishly, but they are actually low-class vermin, and they're wasting their lives, and they're misleading people by their examples. Absolutely misleading. People think, "Oh, I want to become an NBA basketball player, or I want to be a football player, or I want to be a baseball player, and make millions of dollars, and have big houses, and pass big stool." It's all nonsense. Actually, a devotee is more interested in downsizing than in upsizing or supersizing. Just like people go into McDonald's and say, "Supersize me, man." That means they want a big piece of crap between two pieces of bread. And the bigger the crap, the better it is for them. But this is not life. So the devotee downsizes everything. When I joined the temple, the only thing I possessed was a bead bag, one dhoti, and one kurta. I didn't even have socks, right? And that was it. And I had to keep all those things clean, which meant I had to wash it at night and dry it overnight. And even if it was wet, I had to put it on. So that was a simple life. And actually, when you're trained like that, then you can tolerate any situation because you're happy serving Prabhupada and Krishna. And you're happy offering everything to Prabhupada and Krishna because you know it's going to go toward glorifying Krishna and spreading Krishna consciousness. Well, as soon as we want to keep something for ourselves, we have to be secretive. We seek privacy. Just like, locked doors are the popular thing for married people. They enter their bedroom, they lock the door, and they have all kinds of sense gratification, thinking that nobody is watching, but everyone is watching. The devas are watching. Krishna's in the heart. He's watching. You can't get away with anything. But ignorance is bliss. As long as you ignore reading and hearing Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam every day, you think you can get away with things. Just like I know one man, even though he pretends to be a devotee, he was cheating on his wife, and then his wife caught him, and she asked him, "Why did you do that?" He said, "I thought I could get away with it." You can't get away with anything. How can you get away with something when Krishna's right in your heart, witnessing everything you're doing, every desire you have, every word you say, and every action you do? You see, this is all ignorance, but ignorance is bliss for the dumbbells, but not for people who are actually serious about the human form of life. So here it says, even if you're self-realized, you still cannot understand Krishna. Self-realized means you understand I'm not this body, I'm the spirit soul. You understand that the spirit soul is has an eternal relationship with Krishna. You understand Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You understand how to deal with the material nature. Being a minimalist, we minimize our involvement with the material nature, our needs in the material nature. Even in that position, you still cannot understand Krishna. There must be spontaneous love for the Lord. Now, that's not easily attained. That can only be attained by this process of regular hearing and intensive service. So the people would say, well, I'm initiated. I don't come to the class that much, but I listen to some classes sometimes. And, got to take it easy also. So the take it easy people, even though they have self-realization, they never understand Krishna. That's basically what's being said here. And this is said over and over again in many other places. Name vidu suragana, prabhavana maharsaya. Ahamadir hidevana maharsinam chasarvasaha. 10th chapter, 2nd verse. Neither the hosts of demigods nor the great sages know my origin or opulences. For in every respect, I am the source of the demigods and the sages. Now he's talking about the top sages in the universe and the demigods who are amazing people. But he's saying they don't even understand him. And Brahma, who's the number one demigod, he's admitting in this verse today that he doesn't really understand Krishna. He says, still I cannot understand him with all his qualification. He's perfect in the disciplic succession of Vedic wisdom. And he has undergone all austerities. And he's expert in mystic powers. And he's self-realized. And he's recognized by all the great forefathers or the Prajapatis of the living entities. And everyone's offering him respect and obeisances. And he says, still I cannot understand him, the Lord, the very source of my birth. So, Now we see why Prabhupada and how Prabhupada established Krishna consciousness. He didn't say you have to learn Sanskrit, and then you have to learn Sanskrit grammar, and you have to learn Sanskrit context, and you have to learn Sanskrit pronunciation, and you have to learn this thing, and you have to learn that thing. No, he didn't say that. He said, just chant Hare Krishna and come to class every day and eat only prasadam and go out on Sankirtan and wake up early every day for Mangala Aarti and be engaged in devotional service 24 hours a day. And he said, chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So he made it very simple. Lord Chaitanya is the one who made it simple. Prabhupada is simply representing Lord Chaitanya. And follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. No illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, no intoxication or speculation. And always chant Hare Krishna. It says 16 rounds minimum, but there's no maximum. You want to chant all day long, it's okay, But also you have to do service. So chanting is service, but you cannot say, well, I'm too busy chanting, I can't do my service, Prabhu. That's nonsense. See? Oh, I have to study for this Bhakti Shastri test, I can't do my service. That's also nonsense. You have to serve and do everything else also. But serving is the most important thing, because service is the relationship, the connection to Krishna. It is yoga. It's called Bhakti Yoga. Yoga means connection to Krishna. How do you connect to Krishna? Through performing devotional service, not by laying down and taking extra rest or going on a vacation or go sightseeing or whatever. That's not service. Service is specific and it's time sensitive. So those people who understand this are active all day long in different types of service. And there's many types of service. Just like we say, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Atma Nivedanam. Many different types of service. And any of them, if you are engaged in it, in any one, any combination, or all of them, you go back to Godhead. So, then it says also, Nayam Atma Pavarchanena Labo, Na Medaya Na Bahuna Shrutena, Yamivaisa Rinute Tena Labhyas, Tasyaisa Atma Virinute Tanam Swam. So this is from the Mundaka Upanishad, 3rd canto, 2nd chapter, 3rd verse. It says, the Supreme Lord is not attained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, nor even by much hearing. He is attained only by one who he himself chooses. To such a person, he manifests his own form. So, that means that we can do all these things, but Krishna knows whether we're doing it for our own fame and recognition, or if we're doing it because we actually love him. You cannot fake love. You can fake many things, but you cannot fake love. And we cannot cheat Krishna, or we cannot pull a fast one on the Lord. So either we are or we aren't dedicated completely to pleasing Guru and Krishna. Yasya Devi Para Bhakti Yata Devi Tata Kuru Tasyaite Katitahi Artak Prakasante Mahatmanaha. For one who is unflinchingly engaged in devotional service without any vacation, Lord Krishna favors that person and reveals himself and gives knowledge to that person of the Vedic knowledge. So you need knowledge and devotion, right? So one who has unflinching devotion to the Lord, he also gets knowledge by the Lord. The Lord reveals the knowledge. Therefore he says, Tesam satata yuktanam bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenamam upayantite. For those who engage in devotional service to me, always thinking of me, always glorifying me, always active in my service, I give them the knowledge by which they come to me. So you don't have to study. You simply have to hear regularly the classes and be attentive and ask questions and then think about it the rest of the day. Every day we should learn something new. In fact, you should have a journal and write down everything. One thing that you learned that day. After 365 days, you become a pundit because you learned 365 things about Krishna. It's just like if you want to learn a language, you can speak a language if you know 365 words. So you just have to memorize one word every day. You'll be able to speak a language. The same way, if you learn one new thing every day and make note of it and have a journal, you'll see that after 1 year you'll know the philosophy very well. And you never stop learning the philosophy because Krishna is ananta, he's unending. Okay, so then also it says that Yomam evam samudo janati purushottama sasarvavid bhajanti mam sarvabhavena bharata. This is the 15th chapter, 19th verse. It says, whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata. So that is the ultimate statement. The proof that we are knowledgeable about Krishna is that we reorganize our life to be fully engaged in devotional service without any interruption. Okay, we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? No questions, Craig? No? Okay. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you. Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Satma Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Satma Mando Mui Savadana Mate Mando Mui Savadana Mate Jahara Prasade Bai E Bhavatoriya Jai Krishna Prapti Hoya Hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitete Koriya Kya Arana Koriya Mane Asa Guru Charane Rati Esse Utamagati. Ye prasade pure sarva asa. Ye prasade pure sarva asa. Shaksudan dilaje janme janme Prabhu se. Shaksudan dilaje janme janme Prabhu se. Divya gyan hriday prasido, divya gyan hriday prakasito, divya gyan hriday prakasito. Prema bhakti jaha hoite avidya vinasajate. Prema bhakti jaha hoite avidya vinasajate. Vede gajanara charido. Vede gajanara charido. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu. E lokena lokera jivana. Lokena lokera jivana. Lokena lokera jivana. Aha Prabhu kora doya deha more padachaya. Ha Prabhu kora doya deha more padachaya. Ha Prabhu kora doya deha more padachaya. Ebeyas kusukti bhuvana. Ebeyas kusukti bhuvana. Ebeyas kusukti bhuvana. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskada Desatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vindam Jaya Shri Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vindam Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Haribo, Haribo, Gora Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo, Haribo, Gora Haribo, Nitai Gora Haribo. Nitai Gora Premanandi Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Pararajikachasta Tarasatarashi Shimaris Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vindi Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Shikoho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vindi Ki Jai Shri Radha Krishna Gogopinath Sam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhana Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Jamuna Maya Ki Jai Samavela Bhakta Vinda Ki Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the simple devotees, all glories to the simple devotees, all glories to the simple devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Patita Bhavana Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutili Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharani. Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskat Hidasatarni. The Lotus Feet of our spiritual master are the only way by which you can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace, one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth and birth. By him, ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master is the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and Lord and master of devotees. O Master, be merciful unto us. Give us the shade of your lotus feet. Your fame is spread throughout all the three worlds. We take shelter in your lotus feet. Srila Prabhupada Patita Bhavani Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutari Srimati Bhakti Namaste Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati